You mentioned sleep there. How important is getting your 8 hours, 8+ hours for kind of getting rid of toxics?
Yeah, 8 hours is great. For younger people, it's upwards of 9, 10, 11 hours, believe it or not. I mean, ask my teenagers, they don't get any of that. But that's the goal, right? Younger brains need more time to develop. But when it comes to chemicals, it's interesting because the brain and the spinal cord are separated from the bloodstream and it's surrounded by fluid called cerebral spinal fluid. It's kind of clear. People get spinal taps and it's clear. It's not blood that comes out. That material actually is also called the glymphatic system in and around the brain, which clears out a lot of chemicals we now know. Again, science develops, science moves on. We start to see great, cool findings. We now know that when we sleep, we actually clear a lot of the chemicals we're exposed to during the day. And so that's really remarkable because that means not only do we want good quality sleep and long sleep because we feel rested, our memories are better, our response to pain evaluation is actually lower, believe it or not, when you have less sleep. I have more sleep. You feel like your perceptions are better for pain. There's so much good from sleep, but now we have this added benefit of being sort of a cleaning system at night. So I encourage people to really consider how much value on sleep we give it because we often take it for granted. I did, everyone does, but it's something to really use as a tool for detoxifying actually.
Yeah, it's definitely an asset for not
Yeah,
just that, but for everything like you said, like memory and learning and stuff. And
sure.
I think, especially people my age, and probably people older as well, maybe type A's a lot of the time as well. We just think, oh, we can do everything all at once, and oh, it doesn't matter. I can work on 6 hours sleep. It's fine. Let me just spend a few more hours like studying or practicing whatever I'm doing. And if we actually give ourselves time to get a bit more sleep, that's going to obviously compound and benefit us over time, not just for our health, but for our sociability and our memory and stuff. So, you
Yeah,
know,
and look, life is fluid and you're going to go through periods in your life where you're going to be up all night for a paper or you're going to be out partying or maybe, you're going to have a child and you're going to be up all night taking care of a baby. I mean, there's so much about life that's so fluid. And so one of the things that I talk about in the book out of my 4 A's of environmental health navigation, the 4th A is allow. It's doing all of the assess, which is the first, avoid or swap for products and that kind of thing for the second A. The third A is what we add in, nutrition, diet, certain foods that are powerhouses, sleep, all that. But the 4th A is allow. And allow is saying, you know what? You don't have to be perfect. 80/20 is certainly fine. Life is fluid. And when you give yourself a little pat on the back and you say it's okay to have birthday cake and to travel and not always be, this is not about perfection, it actually motivates people to do more of the big lift. So I had to have that psychological piece, I think, because it's such a broad and big topic in order to keep the positive momentum.
yeah, because otherwise the activation energy to do the things you're like kind of encouraging, it would be so high if you kind of fall into that over optimization trap, and it just you end up in.
I think it works against a lot of people in the health and wellness world too. I think there's a sense in medicine as a doctor with colleagues and healthcare people that it's almost putting blame on the patient if they can't keep up a standard that is super high. And I think it's just so unfair. And then you're lopping on pressure on top of someone managing a condition. And so I want to pull back on that and say, you know what, if you reframe the situation that you're doing really well and you're doing the best you can, it's a journey for everybody and take your time and it's not a diet. You want this to be part of your lifestyle. I think all of that makes people's perception of their own condition and pain control even improved because you're putting people on a positive cycle. And the institutions sometimes I find are very daunting in the way that they frame your health as being your own fault. So I don't love that.
Yeah, I was just wondering actually, have you done any studies on kind of caffeine? Is there anything negative in terms of toxics or toxins in caffeine or in coffee that could potentially pose a problem, not just on our sleep but
Yeah.
on our overall
It's
health?
interesting. There's so many environmental toxins. You could go into smoking and alcohol, but you could also say sugar. You could also say caffeine, things that we are, are socially acceptable. I would say that caffeine is certainly a drug. It's always been designed and manufactured and used as a drug. It's even though it's in our food system, it has certain purposes, of course, to keep us awake. But when you take too much, it can be deadly. And in fact, I had in med school, there was someone, we stay up late, we study for, days for major exams. And, in this particular case, someone had, one of my classmates had drank a whole pot of coffee over the course of a nighttime trying to stay up awake and study. And they had overdosed in caffeine that it was really dangerous. I mean, palpitations, cardiac issues. I mean, it revs you up to the point where your metabolism can really be overwhelming in terms of, basic functions. And so that person got pretty sick. So it's not so much I would think that most people are doing that, but I would say that caffeine has a very long half life, so to speak. So it lasts in your system for even 8 to 10 hours. So when you're having your last cup of tea or coffee, but probably more so coffee in terms of caffeine, you wanna make sure it's early enough, so believe it or not, so that you don't wake up your sleep cycle or mess with your sleep cycle, because you want your sleep cycle to be natural. You wanna kind of close down to sundown, to, all of your work activity. So many people rev up to caffeine, and then they do downers to go to bed, sleep aids and medications and melatonin and all that. And technically, we wanna work our bodies around not having to use those kind of compounds.
Yeah. So it's the half life 8 to 10 hours. I always thought it was 6 hours.
It's variable. I think it depends on how much caffeine. I can't give you the exact numbers, but 1 cup, what's 1 cup? My husband loves coffee and his 1 cup is 20 ounces. I'm like, what do you like 4 cups? So I think it's kind of like, "Oh, I don't drink." "Really? Well, how about 6 beers and 2 vodkas?" Vodka tonics, I don't know if that's not drinking, maybe compared to your buddy Joe or whatever. So I think it really is a matter of relative to the amount of ounces of actual alcohol. I think that has to be looked into, or caffeine per drink. And there's also decaf has some caffeine, even if it's not supposed to have any, it's allowable to have some. So you could have lots of decaf and find out that you're wired and find out that you're just more sensitive too. So there's all of those variables. But I think giving yourself a stopping point and knowing how much you're taking, I think is a way to start the process of even reduction if you want to.
Yeah. Well, say you had your last coffee at 1 p.m. and its half life is 6 hours. At 1 a.m., wouldn't a quarter of the caffeine still be in your brain?
For sure.
It's
Yeah, I
just
mean, you're
crazy.
talking about half-life, right, so 50% of what your dose is your half-life, so if your half-life is 6 hours, in 6 hours, only half of what you originally taken in is still in your system. Another 6 hours is only half of the last amount, so you're always gonna have some in your system until it's completely washed out. So, yeah, half-lives matter, and, how much you metabolism, sweat, urinate, how much, other medications you're on, whether or not, your body works, well to get rid of those things also matters. So, and my general rule is for every 1 cup of caffeine that you have, not cup, you want to have equal amounts of water, clean filtered water, because you're offsetting some of the dehydration that goes along with this. I mean, dehydration is really critical in older people. If you have a lot of tea, like in your country and in the UK, tea is like, but there's a lot of people who fall in the US at least. I can't speak to to the UK, but there's a lot of people who fall because they drink tea instead of water, not realizing that the caffeine is dehydrating. Then they stand up and they fall and fracture. So understanding that 1 cup to 1 cup of water to replenish is really kind of an important thing no matter what age you're at.